There are few names in the automotive world that inspire as much emotion as Ferrari. More than just a manufacturer, Ferrari has become a universal symbol of passion, performance, and excellence. Whether it's the unmistakable scream of a naturally aspirated V12, the elegant curve sculpted by Italian designers, or the iconic prancing horse proudly displayed on the hood, Ferrari represents something that goes far beyond transportation. It represents a dream. Yet the story of Ferrari begins with an irony that many people never realize. The company was never created to build luxury sports cars. In fact, Enzo Ferrari had little interest in becoming a road car manufacturer. His true love was racing. Everything else was simply a means to keep that dream alive. To understand Ferrari, we have to travel back to Italy in 1947. Europe was still recovering from the devastation of the Second World War. Cities were rebuilding, industries were struggling, and resources were scarce. While most companies focused on survival, Enzo Ferrari focused on something entirely different: competition. After years spent as a racing driver and later as the manager of Alfa Romeo's successful racing division, he dreamed of creating a team that carried his own name. That dream became reality when Ferrari officially opened its factory in the small town of Maranello. The first automobile to wear the Ferrari badge was the 125S. At first glance, it appeared modest compared to modern supercars, but beneath its handcrafted aluminum body was an engineering masterpiece. Designed by Gioacchino Colombo, its compact 1.5-liter V12 engine was unlike anything else on the road. At a time when many manufacturers relied on simple four-cylinder engines, Ferrari chose 12 cylinders, proving from the very beginning that performance would always take priority over practicality. The 125S wasn't built to satisfy wealthy customers. It was built to generate enough income to finance Ferrari's racing ambitions. Every car sold helped fund another race, another engine, another opportunity to compete. As Enzo Ferrari famously said, he sold road cars simply to pay for his racing team. Only weeks after its debut, the 125S entered its first race. The event ended in disappointment when the car retired with mechanical problems. Most manufacturers would have considered it a failure, but Enzo described it as a promising failure. His engineers returned to the workshop, corrected the weaknesses, and entered another race just days later. This time, the Ferrari crossed the finish line first. That victory established a philosophy that would guide the company for decades. Racing would inspire innovation. Innovation would improve road cars. Road car sales would finance more racing. It was a cycle unlike anything the automotive industry had seen before. Throughout the 1950s, Ferrari expanded its lineup with elegant grand touring cars such as the 166 Inter, the 212, and eventually the legendary 250 series. During this period, Ferrari also formed one of the most influential partnerships in automotive history with the Italian design house Pininfarina, later known as Pininfarina. Together, they created automobiles that combined breathtaking beauty with race-winning performance. These cars weren't simply fast, they looked like rolling sculptures. Despite the company's growing success, Enzo Ferrari refused to compromise his philosophy. He cared little about luxury features or comfortable suspensions. His cars were expected to be loud, demanding, and thrilling. Driving a Ferrari was never supposed to feel easy. It was supposed to feel alive. This uncompromising attitude separated Ferrari from every other luxury manufacturer in Europe and laid the foundation for one of the strongest automotive identities ever created. By the end of the decade, Ferrari had become one of the most respected names in motorsport. Victories on the racetrack were becoming increasingly common, while wealthy enthusiasts around the world dreamed of owning one of the company's beautiful road cars. Yet Ferrari's greatest achievements were still ahead. The 1960s would transform the small Italian manufacturer into an international icon. The 1960s are often remembered as Ferrari's golden age, a decade during which the company reached extraordinary heights in both motorsport and road car development. Ferrari was no longer simply winning races. It was defining what a high-performance automobile should be. During these years, engineering excellence and artistic design came together in perfect harmony, producing some of the most celebrated cars in history. Among them stood one model that would eventually become the most valuable collector car ever built, the Ferrari 250 GTO. Introduced in 1962, the 250 GTO was never intended to become a museum piece. It was developed as a competition car built to satisfy FIA homologation requirements for Grand Touring racing. Every element of its design served a functional purpose. Its long nose reduced aerodynamic drag, carefully placed vents improved cooling, and its lightweight construction allowed the car to achieve remarkable performance. Beneath its elegant body sat a 3-liter naturally aspirated V12 capable of producing around 300 horsepower, enough to propel the car beyond 280 km per hour, an extraordinary achievement for its era. What truly separated the 250 GTO from its rivals was its balance. It wasn't simply fast in a straight line. It excelled through corners, remained reliable during endurance races, and rewarded skilled drivers with remarkable precision. The car quickly dominated international GT racing, securing multiple championships and cementing Ferrari's reputation as the manufacturer to beat. Only 36 examples of the 250 GTO were ever produced. At the time, Ferrari built only the number required for racing regulations, never imagining that decades later collectors would compete fiercely to acquire one. Today, these cars regularly sell for tens of millions of dollars, with private transactions reportedly exceeding $70 million. More than just an automobile, the 250 GTO has become a symbol of automotive perfection. While Ferrari continued to dominate Europe's racetracks, an unexpected challenge was emerging across the Atlantic. The Ford Motor Company, eager to strengthen its image through motorsport, attempted to purchase Ferrari in the early 1960s. Months of negotiations suggested that an agreement was close. However, Enzo Ferrari refused to surrender control of his racing operations and abruptly walked away from the deal. The failed acquisition deeply embarrassed Henry Ford II. Determined to prove American engineering could defeat the Italian manufacturer, he launched one of the most ambitious racing programs in history. Ford invested enormous resources into developing the GT40 with a single objective: defeat Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. For years, Ferrari had dominated the legendary endurance race, establishing itself as the undisputed king of long-distance motorsport. But in 1966, Ford finally achieved its goal, ending Ferrari's remarkable winning streak. The defeat marked one of the most significant moments in motorsport history and inspired one of the greatest rivalries the automotive world has ever witnessed. Although Ferrari had lost at Le Mans, the company's reputation remained stronger than ever. New Grand Touring models such as the 275 GTB and the magnificent Daytona demonstrated Ferrari's ability to transform racing technology into elegant road cars capable of extraordinary performance. By the end of the decade, owning a Ferrari had become a symbol of success recognized across the globe. Yet change was approaching rapidly. New competitors such as Lamborghini were challenging traditional ideas about supercars with revolutionary mid-engine designs, while advances in technology were reshaping automotive engineering. Ferrari would soon face one of the greatest periods of transformation in its history, leading to the birth of machines that would define an entirely new generation of performance automobiles. Formula One comes to the road. The passing of Enzo Ferrari in August 1988 marked the end of an era. For more than 4 decades, every major decision within the company had been guided by the man who had built Ferrari from a small racing team into an international icon. Many believed that without his vision and uncompromising standards, Ferrari would slowly lose its identity. Instead, the company entered one of the most innovative periods in its history. During the early 1990s, the automotive world was evolving at an extraordinary pace. Electronic systems were becoming increasingly sophisticated, carbon fiber was beginning to replace traditional materials, and Formula One was entering a technological revolution. Ferrari understood that if it wanted to remain at the top, it could no longer rely solely on tradition. It needed to bring the lessons learned on the racetrack directly to the road. The first major symbol of this new era arrived in 1995 with the Ferrari F50. Unlike the F40, which focused on raw power and lightweight construction, the F50 was designed to make drivers feel as though they were piloting a Formula One car on public roads. Its naturally aspirated 4.7-liter V12 was derived directly from Ferrari's Formula One program, while its carbon fiber monocoque chassis represented one of the most advanced production car structures ever built at the time. Every aspect of the car reflected Ferrari's racing philosophy. The engine formed part of the chassis, just as it did in a Formula One car, increasing structural rigidity while reducing weight. Even the removable roof panel allowed drivers to experience the sound of the V12, with almost nothing separating them from the engine. Although the F50 received mixed reactions when it was first introduced, time has completely transformed its reputation. Today, collectors recognize it as one of Ferrari's purest and most technically fascinating creations, representing the final generation of naturally aspirated Ferrari supercars before electronics began to dominate performance. While Ferrari continued developing extraordinary road cars, the company's greatest success was unfolding on racing circuits around the world. In 1996, Ferrari signed a driver who would change the company's history forever, Michael Schumacher. At that time, Ferrari had not won a Formula One drivers' championship since 1979. The team possessed legendary heritage but struggled to compete consistently against rivals such as Williams and McLaren. Schumacher's arrival marked the beginning of an ambitious rebuilding project that extended far beyond the driver himself. Together with technical director Ross Brawn, as the 1970s began, the automotive world was changing faster than ever before. Technology was advancing at an incredible pace, customer expectations were evolving, and new manufacturers were entering the performance car market with bold ideas. Ferrari, which had dominated motorsport for decades, suddenly found itself surrounded by fierce competition. One of the biggest threats came from an unexpected rival. In 1966, Lamborghini introduced the Miura, a revolutionary sports car that placed its V12 engine behind the driver instead of in the front. It wasn't just incredibly fast, it completely changed the way people imagined a supercar should look and perform. Ferrari knew it couldn't ignore this new direction forever. Although the company had experimented with mid-engine layouts in racing, Enzo Ferrari remained skeptical about putting such a configuration into a road car. He believed powerful road cars should continue using front-mounted engines because they were more predictable for inexperienced drivers. But the market was changing, and eventually Ferrari had no choice but to evolve. That evolution arrived in 1973 with the Ferrari Berlinetta Boxer. The Berlinetta Boxer wasn't simply another Ferrari. It represented the beginning of a completely new philosophy. Its flat 12 engine was mounted behind the driver, dramatically improving weight distribution and handling. The low, wedge-shaped body reflected the futuristic design language of the decade, making it look more like a concept car than a production vehicle. For the first time, Ferrari wasn't simply following tradition. It was embracing the future. The Berlinetta Boxer proved that Ferrari could successfully adapt without losing its identity. It combined breathtaking performance with unmistakable Italian elegance, laying the foundation for every mid-engine flagship Ferrari that would follow. As the 1980s arrived, Ferrari introduced a car that would become one of the most recognizable automobiles ever built, the Testarossa. Few cars captured the spirit of the decade quite like the Testarossa. Its wide stance, dramatic side strakes, pop-up headlights, and massive rear end made it impossible to mistake for anything else. Designed by Pininfarina, it looked futuristic, aggressive, and unmistakably exotic. Underneath its striking bodywork was a 4.9-liter flat 12 engine producing nearly 390 horsepower. While those numbers may seem modest by today's standards, the Testarossa was capable of reaching almost 290 kilometers per hour, placing it among the fastest production cars in the world. But performance alone doesn't explain why the Testarossa became such a cultural phenomenon. It appeared in blockbuster films, music videos, magazines, and perhaps most famously, the television series Miami Vice. Throughout the 1980s, owning a white Ferrari Testarossa became a symbol of success, luxury, and ambition. It wasn't simply a sports car anymore. It had become part of popular culture. Yet Ferrari's greatest masterpiece was still waiting. In 1987, the company celebrated its 40th anniversary. Enzo Ferrari, now approaching the end of his life, wanted one final automobile that embodied everything he believed a Ferrari should be. He wasn't interested in luxury, electronic gadgets, or comfort. He wanted the purest driving machine his engineers could possibly create. The result was the Ferrari F40. From the moment it was unveiled, the automotive world realized it was looking at something extraordinary. The F40 wasn't designed to make driving easier. It was designed to make driving unforgettable. Its lightweight body combined Kevlar, carbon fiber, and aluminum at a time when such materials were almost exclusively reserved for motorsport. Inside, there was almost nothing that could be considered luxurious. The carpets were gone. Sound insulation was removed. Even the interior door handles were replaced with simple fabric straps to save weight. Everything served one purpose: speed. Behind the driver sat a twin-turbocharged, 2.9-liter V8, producing 478 horsepower. More importantly, the car weighed barely over 1,100 kilograms, creating an astonishing power-to-weight ratio. Driving the F40 demanded complete concentration. There was no traction control, no stability control, no anti-lock braking system, no driving modes, no electronic safety net waiting to rescue the driver from a mistake. The twin turbochargers delivered their power with explosive violence. Below a certain engine speed, the car felt almost civilized. But once the turbos reached full boost, acceleration arrived like an explosion, catching even experienced drivers by surprise. The F40 didn't forgive mistakes. It expected skill. It demanded respect. For many enthusiasts, that is precisely what made it the greatest Ferrari ever built. Adding even more significance to its legacy, the F40 became the final Ferrari personally approved by Enzo Ferrari before his death in 1988. It represented the last expression of his uncompromising philosophy, a machine built entirely for emotion rather than convenience. Even today, decades after production ended, the F40 continues to rank among the most admired supercars in history. While modern hypercars are undoubtedly faster, few possess the same raw character or emotional intensity. With Enzo Ferrari gone, many question whether the company could continue without the man who had shaped its identity for more than 40 years. The answer would arrive during the next decade, when Formula One technology, carbon fiber engineering, and one of the greatest racing drivers in history would propel Ferrari into an entirely new era. Designer Rory Byrne and team principal Jean Todt, Ferrari assembled one of the most successful teams motorsport had ever seen. Their dominance would define an entire generation. Between 2000 and 2004, Michael Schumacher won 5 consecutive Formula One World Championships with Ferrari, while the team captured multiple Constructors' Championships. Red racing cars once again became symbols of victory, restoring Ferrari's position as the most feared name in motorsport. Success on the track quickly influenced Ferrari's road cars. Technologies originally developed for Formula One began appearing in production models at an unprecedented rate. Paddle-shift gearboxes dramatically reduced gear change times, carbon ceramic brakes improved stopping performance, sophisticated aerodynamics increased stability, and lightweight composite materials became increasingly common. By the early 2000s, driving a Ferrari felt closer to driving a race car than ever before. In 2002, Ferrari unveiled the Enzo, a car named in honor of the company's founder. It represented everything Ferrari had learned during decades of Formula One competition. Designed with a carbon fiber chassis, active aerodynamics, carbon ceramic brakes, and an advanced 6-liter naturally aspirated V12 producing over 650 horsepower, the Enzo immediately became one of the fastest production cars in the world. Its appearance was equally revolutionary. Inspired by contemporary Formula One cars, the Enzo abandoned traditional curves in favor of aggressive aerodynamic surfaces, large air intakes, and a sharply pointed nose. Every line served a purpose. Every opening managed airflow. Every component existed to improve performance. Only 400 examples were ultimately produced, making the Enzo one of Ferrari's most exclusive creations. Yet Ferrari's engineers already had their eyes on the future. During the following decade, environmental regulations began changing the automotive industry. Governments demanded lower emissions, while advances in battery technology opened entirely new possibilities for performance. Many enthusiasts feared these changes would eventually destroy the character that had defined Ferrari for generations. Ferrari saw an opportunity instead. In 2013, the company introduced LaFerrari, a name that translated simply as the Ferrari. It was an ambitious title, suggesting that this machine represented the ultimate expression of everything Ferrari had learned throughout its history. For the first time, Ferrari equipped one of its flagship road cars with a hybrid powertrain. Traditional enthusiasts were skeptical. To many, electric motors belonged in economical city cars rather than Italian supercars. They worried that batteries would add unnecessary weight and dilute the emotional driving experience that Ferrari had spent decades perfecting. Ferrari approached hybrid technology from an entirely different perspective. The electric motor wasn't designed primarily to improve fuel economy. It was designed to eliminate delay. By providing instant torque the moment the driver pressed the accelerator, it worked alongside the naturally aspirated 6.3-liter V12 to create seamless acceleration unlike anything Ferrari had produced before. Together, the two power sources generated an astonishing 963 horsepower. LaFerrari accelerated from 0 to 100 km per hour in less than 3 seconds and exceeded 350 km per hour. More importantly, it proved that electrification and emotion did not have to be enemies. Instead of replacing Ferrari's legendary V12, electricity enhanced it, allowing engineers to create a car that felt even more responsive while preserving the unmistakable soundtrack that enthusiasts adored. LaFerrari marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. It demonstrated that Ferrari was willing to embrace new technologies without abandoning the values that had defined the company since 1947. But an even greater transformation was approaching. For the first time in its history, Ferrari would prepare to enter a future where electricity would no longer play a supporting role. It would become the main attraction. The evolution of Ferrari. From Racing Dreams to Automotive Legends Chapter 5, the future of the prancing horse. For nearly 8 decades, Ferrari has lived by a simple philosophy: evolve without losing your soul. Every generation of Ferrari has faced criticism for embracing new technologies, yet time and again, those same innovations have gone on to define the future of high-performance automobiles. Disc brakes, fuel injection, turbochargers, paddle-shift transmissions, carbon fiber construction, and hybrid powertrains were all met with skepticism when they first appeared. Today, they are considered milestones in Ferrari's remarkable journey. The next chapter began in 2019 with the introduction of the SF90 Stradale. Named in celebration of Scuderia Ferrari's 90th anniversary, it became the company's first series production plug-in hybrid supercar. Combining a twin-turbocharged V8 engine with 3 electric motors, the SF90 produced an astonishing 1,000 horsepower. It was not only the most powerful road-going Ferrari ever built at the time, but also one of the fastest. For the first time in Ferrari's history, a production model featured all-wheel drive, allowing it to accelerate with extraordinary precision while maintaining the agility expected from a Ferrari. What made the SF90 remarkable wasn't simply its performance figures. It demonstrated Ferrari's ability to blend traditional engineering with cutting-edge technology without sacrificing excitement. Drivers could leave their neighborhoods in complete silence using electric power alone before unleashing the full force of the V8 and electric motors on an open road. It was a glimpse into the future, proving that performance and innovation could coexist. Ferrari continued exploring this new direction with the 296 GTB, introduced in 2021. At first glance, its engine configuration surprised many enthusiasts. Instead of the company's legendary V12, the 296 featured a compact twin-turbocharged V6 paired with an electric motor. Some questioned whether a V6 could ever deliver the emotional experience expected from a Ferrari. The answer came the moment the engine started. Ferrari's engineers had carefully designed the 120-degree V6 to produce an unmistakable soundtrack while delivering exceptional performance. Combined with its hybrid system, the 296 GTB generated over 800 horsepower, demonstrating that Ferrari's identity had never depended solely on the number of cylinders beneath the hood. It had always been about the way those engines made people feel. Then came perhaps the most controversial Ferrari of all. For decades, Enzo Ferrari had insisted that the company would never build a practical family vehicle. Ferrari was known for 2-seat sports cars and grand touring machines, not tall, spacious automobiles designed for everyday life. Yet in 2022, Ferrari introduced the Purosangue. The world immediately called it an SUV. Ferrari strongly disagreed. The company described it as an entirely new category of vehicle, combining sports car performance with everyday versatility. Regardless of its classification, the Purosangue represented one of the boldest decisions in Ferrari's history. Unlike many competitors that relied on turbocharged engines for their luxury performance SUVs, Ferrari chose to equip the Purosangue with a magnificent naturally aspirated 6.5-liter V12. Producing more than 700 horsepower, it delivered the unmistakable sound and character that enthusiasts associated with the brand, while offering seating for 4 passengers and enough practicality to be driven every day. The Purosangue demonstrated that Ferrari could expand into new markets without abandoning the engineering principles that had defined the company for generations. Yet an even greater challenge was approaching. The global automotive industry was moving steadily toward electrification. Governments around the world announced increasingly strict emissions regulations, while consumers began embracing electric vehicles at an unprecedented pace. Nearly every major manufacturer had already committed to an electric future. Ferrari could no longer remain on the sidelines. The company confirmed that its first fully electric production model would mark one of the most significant moments in its history. For many enthusiasts, the announcement raised a difficult question. Could a Ferrari still be a Ferrari without the roar of a combustion engine? Without the vibrations of a V8? Or the unforgettable melody of a naturally aspirated V12 echoing through mountain roads? It is a question that has divided the automotive community. Some believe the soul of Ferrari lives inside its engines. Others argue that Ferrari has always been defined by something much deeper. Throughout its history, the company has never stood still. Every generation has embraced new technologies in pursuit of greater performance, even when those innovations initially seemed controversial. Perhaps the true spirit of Ferrari has never been about a particular engine configuration or a specific type of fuel. Perhaps it has always been about refusing to accept limitations. Looking back over nearly 80 years of history, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Ferrari has repeatedly transformed adversity into opportunity. It emerged from the ruins of post-war Italy to become the world's most admired sports car manufacturer. It survived fierce rivalries, economic crises, changing regulations, and technological revolutions without ever losing its passion for competition. Every legendary Ferrari, from the tiny 125S to the priceless 250 GTO, from the unforgettable F40 to the revolutionary LaFerrari, and the groundbreaking SF90, exists because someone in Maranello believed yesterday's achievements were not enough. That relentless pursuit of perfection is the true legacy of Enzo Ferrari. He never wanted to build ordinary automobiles. He wanted to build machines that stirred emotions, challenged expectations, and pushed the limits of engineering. Decades after his passing, that philosophy continues to guide every Ferrari that leaves the gates of Maranello. No matter how technology evolves, one thing remains certain. The prancing horse will continue chasing the future, just as fearlessly as it chased victory in 1947. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Ferrari has taught the automotive world. True legends are not remembered because they resist change. They are remembered because they have the courage to redefine what is possible. So, if you could choose just one Ferrari from the company's extraordinary history, which would it be? Would you select the timeless elegance of the 250 GTO, the raw brutality of the F40, the Formula One-inspired Enzo, the revolutionary LaFerrari, or one of Ferrari's latest technological masterpieces? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through one of the most fascinating stories in automotive history, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more documentaries exploring the machines, the people, and the innovations that changed the world. Because every great car has a story, and Ferrari's story is far from over.